العاشر. All right, so inshallah, inshallah today we're gonna, as usual, we're gonna read the passage again so that we refresh our memory, our minds as to what we're dealing with, some of the expressions, some of the vocabulary, and then we're gonna go straight into our exercises. Inshallah, it's just a few exercises in this lesson, so we should be able to finish it off today. All right. Before we get back into the lesson and read it again, are there any questions that anyone has? And we will, give a couple of minutes. Anybody coming in? Any questions before we start back? Okay, the Imam did tell me he had a few connectivity issues, so he may not be joining us today. All right, so we'll continue, inshallah. So we're going to read the passage again. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ad-darsul ashiru. So as usual, if you can say after me, all right? Ad-darsul ashiru. Ad-darsul ashiru. ذهب زكريا ذهب زكريا لزيارة ذهب زكريا لزيارة حامد بعد صلاة الفجر ولكنه ما وجده في البيت فقال لابنه موسى أين أبوك؟ موسى ذهب إلى السوق. زكريا أيذهب إلى السوق كل يوم؟ أيذهب إلى السوق كل يوم؟ موسى نعم يذهب دائما إلى السوق بعد صلاة الفجر. زكريا متى يرجع من السوق؟ موسى يرجع في الساعة 7 وأحيانا في الساعة 8. زكريا ماذا يفعل في البيت؟ ماذا يفعل في البيت؟ What does he do at home? ماذا يفعل في البيت؟ موسى يقرأ الصحف ويسمع الأخبار من الإذاعة. زكريا متى يذهب إلى المصنع؟ متى يذهب إلى المصنع؟ All right, just give me 1 minute there, please. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. Where is this thing coming up here? Okay. Just give me 1 second here, please. Okay, so to continue, Zakaria asks, متى يذهب um, which, right. زكريا متى يذهب إلى المصنع؟ You say after me, متى يذهب إلى المصنع؟ موسى يذهب في الساعة 9:30. Again, يذهب في الساعة 9:30. زكريا ومتى يرجع من هناك؟ ومتى يرجع من هناك؟ موسى يرجع في الساعة 1:30 أو 2:00. If you join in that أو and 2:00, you would say أوث. Okay? Remember we went through that a couple lessons ago. You have the sukun followed by a shadda on the tha, because the tha is a sun letter, so the lam is silent. So remember the shadda is really a sukun and is a double letter with the first letter having sukun. So it's like two sukuns clashing there. So what do we do in this case? We put a kasra below the wow. So we say awith, awith. All right. So aw athaniyati, you get awith, awith thaniyati. Okay. So let's read that line again. يرجع في الساعة 1:30 أو 2:00. زكريا أيذهب إلى المصنع مرة أخرى؟ أيذهب إلى المصنع مرة أخرى بعد الظهر. Speech. موسى لا يذهب بعد الظهر. لا يذهب بعد الظهر. يجلس هنا في مكتبه بعد صلاة العصر. يجلس هنا في مكتبه بعد صلاة العصر. زكريا كم عاملا يعمل في مصنعكم؟ كم عاملا يعمل في مصنعكم؟ كم عاملا يعمل في مصنعكم؟ يعمل في مصنعكم. موسى مصنعنا ليس بكبير. You all understand what is the word masna'? Masna'un is a factory. Okay? So you have masna'un, masna'una, our factory. Okay? Masna'ukum, your factory. Okay? Plural, your plural. Okay, so that is the pronoun added on there. So you have fi masna'ikum, in your factory. So in that case, the ayn will take the kasra, right? Because of the fi coming before it, the help for job. Okay, so it's fi masna'ikum. But when you go to the next line, there's nothing acting on the word, so it takes back the it takes back the dhamma because it is now nominative. All right, masna'ukum. You ever seen that? Everybody with me? So here you have fi masna'ikum. Why is I? Because of the fi here, right? Harf al-jar fi makes a below the ain take the kasra. Masna'ikum. However, in the next line, there's nothing acting on the word masna'u, right? So therefore, there's no kasra fatha. There is the default, which is the dhamma, which is the nominative case. All right, so it's masna'u na, masna'una. All right, so Musa is replying, masna'una laysa bi kabirin. Our factory is not big. يعمل فيه 125 عاملا. So see after me, يعمل فيه 125 عاملا. Notice the word mi'a, all right? There's a silent aleph there, okay? And it's a kind of weird place to put an aleph because normally an aleph comes after a letter with a fatha, all right? In this case, the letter before it has a kasra, mim kasra, mim. So the aleph here is silent. This is one of the few words in Arabic where you have a silent letter that's not pronounced. Most words in Arabic, they pronounce all the letters in the word, all right? So this is one of the few words where there's a silent letter, okay? So it's mi'atun, but don't forget, if you're writing it, don't forget aleph after the mim, all right? Mi'atun wa khamsatun wa ishruna amilan. Wa muhandisani. There are 25 workers, 125 workers and 2 engineers. Next line, Zakaria, الساعة الآن 9:15. Again, الساعة الآن 9:15. وما رجع أبوك. موسى لعله يرجع اليوم متأخرا. Perhaps he is returning late today. Right? So this is the passage here. Again, any questions, any words you don't understand, you can ask now. Okay, so going through the exercises again. We answered the comprehension questions last week. All right, at least the first one. So we have the second one to go through now. So we're on page 71, واحد وسبعون, page 71, رقم 2, number 2. All right, exercise 2. صحح Ma yali. Correct what follows. So there are some statements that are coming up, and there are statements about the passage, but they are saying correct the statement. So there are some error or errors in the statement, so we have to correct it. Okay, so we just read the passage. It should be fresh in our minds. And if you want to check back anything, well, we have our books. You can always flip back the page and check the passage. Okay, so the first one, رقم واحد, حامد ابن موسى. حامد ابن موسى. هذا ليس صحيح. هذا ليس صحيح. It's not correct. What is the correct answer? What is the correct statement?
Musa ibn Hamidin.
Now, Musa ibn Hamid. Right? So Musa is the son of Hamid. Right? Nine. يذهب حامد إلى السوق أحيانا. هذا ليس صحيح. Anybody? يذهب حامد إلى السوق أحيانا. أحيانا means what?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay, so what is the correct answer?
Daiman.
دائما. So you're supposed to say يذهب حامد إلى السوق دائما. دائما. So you check it in the passage here, right? You can flip back and see it in the passage. So دائما means all the time or always, and أحيانا means sometimes. Sometimes. Okay. ثلاثة. يذهب حامد إلى المصنع في الساعة 8:30. نعم، هذا صحيح أو ليس صحيح؟ ليس صحيح. So, what is the correct thing? Look back in the passage. So this statement here says يذهب حامد. Hamid goes إلى المصنع, to his or to the factory في الساعة 8:30. He goes at 8:30. Correct? At الثامنة, he goes at 9. Okay, he goes at what? 9:30. صحيح or لا? صحيح. So it's not 8:30, but he goes at 9:30. All right. So look at it in the passage. الثامنة is from ثمانية. ثمانية means 8. So الثامنة is the 8th hour or 8 o'clock. All right. So that's not what the passage says. The passage says الساعة التاسعة. Right. It goes at 9 o'clock, 1:30. So it goes at 9:30. Okay. Next one. يذهب حامد إلى المصنع بعد صلاة الظهر أيضا. What does the word أيضا mean? We met it a couple times in the past few, not the past few, but a few lessons back. أيضا means
Also.
Right? So أيضا means also. Okay. So يذهب حامد إلى المصنع بعد صلاة الظهر أيضا. So he goes to the factory after صلاة الظهر as well, or also. صحيح ولا لا؟ ليس صحيح.
ليس صحيح.
صحيح. صحيح. لا يذهب حامد إلى المصنع بعد صلاة الظهر. Right? So Hamid does not go to the factory after Salat al-Dhuhr. Right? Next one. خمسة يجلس في البيت بعد صلاة العصر.
هذا صحيح.
هذا صحيح. نعم. So he sits in his house after Salat al-Asr. Right?
In the office.
He's in the office, yeah. Let's see what the passage says.
يجلس هنا في المكتبة بعد صلاة.
Right, so يجلس هنا في المكتبه بعد صلاة العصر. So he sits in his office after صلاة العصر. Right? Last one here. نصنع حامد كبير.
ليست
So what does this say? It says Hamid's
Factory
factory
is big.
is big. And we have to correct it. We say نصنع حامد ليس بكبير. It's not big. All right, of course, that is a relative statement. Some people may say that's a big factory. 125 workers, 2 engineers, that's a big factory. All right. But I guess for some people, that's not big. All right. For big businessmen, that's not big. All right. So that is the two passages, two exercises based on the passage. Now we're going to look at basically the introduction of the fi'l al-mudari', which is the present tense verb. Present tense verb. All right. We met the past tense. Now we would have gone through this, right? In a by looking at the table and so on. We have done this many moons ago in class. All right. But now we are going through it in the book here. And basically, we're going to compare it. First of all, this is what the author of the book did. Right? Allah bless him tremendously. Right? That what he did, he gave a statement in using the past tense verb, and then he compares it or gives a similar statement using the present tense verb. So in Arabic, past tense verb is called al-madi. Al-madi. And you see it here highlighted, alif lam, mim, alif, dod, and ya, madi. Okay? And the present tense is called al-mudari'. Al-mudari'. Alif lam, mim, dod, alif, ra, and ain. Al-mudari'. So we need to get familiar with these terms so that when we are saying it, we know what we're talking about, right? Madi is past tense, yes. So if you can say after me, al-madi, madi, present tense, al-mudari', al-mudari'. Right, so we're gonna say the passage, we're gonna say the sentences now. Right, so you all can say after me. Hold on. Just increase the size of this screen here a bit. All right, so ذهب علي إلى المدرسة أمس. So say after me. ذهب علي إلى المدرسة أمس.
ذهب علي إلى المدرسة أمس.
All right, so what does that mean? Ali went, past tense, right? Remember, this is under the column of what? Al-Madi, past tense, okay? So it means what? Ali went إلى المدرسة, to school, amsi, yesterday. So Ali went to school yesterday, past tense, right? Let's see the comparative sentence under the present tense. يذهب يذهب علي إلى المدرسة كل يوم. كل يوم. So Ali goes to school every day. كل يوم means every day. Right? So you see the difference here. يذهب, he goes to, present tense. All right? So before we go on, let's look at the difference here. We see here in the past tense, all the time we have been referring to the root word, which has the 3 root letters for the verb, right? In the case of dhahaba, it is dal, ha, and ba. These are what we call the root letters of the root word, right? It's past tense. Now, when we are looking at other forms of the past tense verb, we would have seen suffixes added at the end, things added after these 3 letters. Okay, so for example, we had dhahabu, they went, dhahabta, you went, dhahabti, you feminine went, all right, and so on, right? So we see things added at the end. Here now, when we are dealing with present tense, we would see things being added at the beginning and at the end. In other words, prefixes and suffixes. Okay? In this case, we just see 1 letter added as a prefix. We see the ya here. Okay? So you have dhahaba, yadhabu, ya added at the beginning. I just pointed that out. We will look at it in more detail in the next exercise. Let's look at the next example. قرأ. So say after me, قرأ إسماعيل القرآن.
قرأ إسماعيل القرآن.
قرأ إسماعيل القرآن.
قرأ إسماعيل القرآن.
You see here we have a verbal sentence. This is a side point. This is a side point. That is saying this as a reminder. Okay. We have a verbal sentence here. Sentence beginning with a verb, which is qara'a. Then we have the doer of the verb, which is Ismailu. You see the dhamma on the lam there. Why is there dhamma? Is there dhamma because that fa'il or the doer of the verb is in the nominative case. Okay? So therefore it carries a dhamma. And then you have al-Qur'ana, it is the maf'ul bihi, which is the object of the sentence, which is in the case of nasb or the accusative case. All right? So qara'a Ismailu al-Qur'ana. Ismail read the Quran, past tense. Okay, so we have the 3 root letters here for the verb. Qara'a, qaf, ra, hamza on the alif, qara'a, which means he read, past tense. Okay. Let's look at the comparative sentence used in the present tense. Yaqra'u. So look at that. You add the ya again. Right? So qara'a yaqra'u. Qara'a yaqra'u. Right? Yaqra'u Ismailu al-Qur'ana ba'da salat al-fajr kulla yawmin. So say after me. Yaqra'u Ismailu al-Qur'ana.
يقرأ إسماعيل القرآن.
بعد صلاة الفجر كل يوم.
بعد صلاة الفجر كل يوم.
Right. So Ismail reads, present tense, the Quran after Salat al-Fajr every day. Kulla yawmin. Okay? So this is the present tense. So let's look at the verb again. Qara'a yaqra'u. So again, what we add before it is a ya, a fatha. Right? Let's look at the last example here now. غسل الرجل سيارته. So say after me. غسل
غسل
الرجل
الرجل
سيارته.
سيارته.
So the man washed his car. All right, man washed his car. Past tense. All right. Let's look at the present tense. يغسل الرجل سيارته كل أسبوع. right? The man washes his car every week. Every week. كل أسبوع. Every week. So for these three examples, we see past tense, 3 letters at the root verb, and then present tense, we add 1 letter as a prefix, right? So now we have a few more examples of the verb alone and how it changes with respect to the present tense. So what are we showing here? تأمل الأمثلة. واكتب ماضي واكتب مضارع الأفعال الآتية. So look at the example and write the present tense of the following verbs. Right, the present tense of the following verbs. So easy, you have kataba yaktubu. However, notice at the top we have here 1 or واحد, 2, 3, 4. What are these numbers for? These are groups. What are these groups about? Well, all you see here is the aranaya. Yeah. So you just see same 3 letters, the araya, but there is a slight difference, and I'm going to highlight that now. And that is why they categorize it in these 4 groups here. All right. And that difference is in the present tense, there is a slight change in the middle root letter. Slight change in the middle root letter. Let's look at the first example in the first row in each group, and we'll see what I'm talking about, right? So you have the word kataba, which means he wrote. Kataba, he wrote. Kaf, ta, ba. Ka fata ka, ta fata ta, and ba fata ba. Kataba, he wrote. Right? Present tense for that is yaktubu. 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 So yeah, there's a few changes here. 1, there's an added letter. As I said, in the present tense, they add letters at the beginning, prefixes. In this case, they add the ya, right? Then you have the first root letter, which is the kaf. It takes a sukun. All right, before the kaf had a fatha, right? Kataba, kaf, fatha, ka. Now the kaf has a sukun. So you say what? Yak, yak. Then the second letter, the ta, which in the past tense had a fatha, it now has a dhamma. So you have kataba, now you have yaktubu. All right? And the last change is that the last letter now has a dhamma. Last letter also has a dhamma. Okay? So yaktubu. Yaktubu. So next group. So these 4 groups you see in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, has to do, they categorize it based on what? On the only change, which is the, sorry, not the only change, but it's based only on one of these changes which I highlighted, which is the middle letter. Okay? Because all the other changes are similar in all the other examples. Ya is added, yes. Sukun on the first root letter, yes. Dhamma on the last letter, yes. All right? All of them have Dhamma on the last letter. All of them have ya added, and all of them have sukun on the first root letter. Okay? So the only difference between all of these groups is what vowel goes on the second root letter. I hope you're all with me, yeah? Let me just say that quickly in a summary. I highlighted 4 changes between the past tense verb and the present tense verb. 4 changes. All right? Out of the 4 changes, only one of them is different in each of the groups. Right? So all of the groups change in the same way in 3 of the changes, And the only difference is the one in the middle letter is that it takes a different vowel in the different groups. Here. What am I talking about? Let's see. Kataba yaktubu. Kamalita. Let's look at the second group. Jalasa yajli. Kasra. Kasra below the lam. However, the root has what? Fatha. In the middle letter, the lam. Just as the root in kataba has fatha on the middle letter. Kataba yaktubu. Jalasa yajli. Su. Kasra below the lam. You all see that? Let's look at the third group. Dhahaba yadhabu. It is the third one now. We have a ha on the middle letter. So far we saw the middle letter taken Dhamma. We saw the middle letter taken Kasra. We saw the middle letter now taken Fatha. All of these with the root or the past tense verb, all of them having Fatha. Kataba yaktubu. Jalasa yajlisu. Dhahaba yadhabu. All right? So all of them, the root has the fatha, but the present tense took different vowels in the middle letter. Let's look at the last group now. The last group, the past tense now has a little difference. The past tense, the middle letter has kasra. You all see that? So the past tense is not sama'a, but sami'a. Kasra below the mim. All right? So sami'a, and look what happens to the present tense. Yasma'u takes a fatha. Right? So sami'a yasma'u. Sami'a yasma'u. I believe there are two or three other groups with similar changes, whereas the root might have a dhamma in the middle and so on. Right? But these are the four basic groups that we're dealing with now. Later on, we would see. Right? These are the four most common, inshallah. Right? So basically, as I said, these four groups, what is the difference? It's only the vowel on the middle letter, okay? The first three, past tense verb has a fatha on the middle letter and different vowels in the present tense. Whereas the last group has kasra in the middle letter and a fatha in the present tense. All right? So let's keeping that in mind, let's look at the examples again. So say after me, kataba yaktubu.
Kataba yaktubu.
Jalasa yajlisu.
Jalasa yajlisu.
Dhahaba yadhhabu.
Dhahaba yadhhabu.
Sami'a yasma'u.
Sami'a yasma'u.
All right, so we're back to group one now, and let's see how we're going to deal with this group. So we have here, dakhala yadkhulu. Qaf dhamma. Dakhala yadkhulu. Dakhala yadkhulu. Let's go down the line here. So we have here kharaja yakhruju. Kharaja yakhruju. Sajada yasjudu. Sajada yasjudu. Crossing over to the next page. Akala yakulu. Akala means to eat. Akala yakulu. Qatala yaqtulu. We're back to the second group now. Jalasa yajlisu. Ghasala yaghsilu. Raja'a yarji'u. Nazala yanzilu. Nazala yanzilu. Kasara yaksuru. Kasara yaksiru. Daraba yadribu. So you see all of these, the present tense, they take the kasra below the middle letter. Okay, let's look at the third group now. ذهب يذهب. ذهب يذهب. ركع يركع. رفع يرفع. فعل يفعل. سأل يسأل. سأل يسأل. فتح يفتح. فتح يفتح. سمع يسمع. So this is the fourth group now, where the past tense has kasra below the middle letter, but it takes a fatha in the present tense. Okay? So sami'a yasma'u. Fahima yafhamu. Fahima yafhamu. La'iba yal'abu. La'iba yal'abu. Hafidha yafhadhu. Sorry. Hafidha yahfadhu. Hafidha yahfadhu. Yahfadhu. Next page. Shariba yashrabu. Shariba yashrabu. Rakiba yarkabu. Rakiba yarkabu. All right, so before we move on, just 2 points here. One is to these the verbs falling in these groups. There's no pattern, there's no way to tell this group, this verb, sorry, will fall in this group. There's no. So we have to learn the past tense with the present tense. So if you all remember when we were doing some of the vocabulary from the Quran, this was like about 2 years ago. We were doing pull out some vocabulary from the Quran. We were learning the verbs, past tense and present tense. We would have both of them together. Okay? And this is why, because you have to learn the past tense with the present tense. Why do you have to learn it with the present tense? Because you need to know what vowel goes on that middle letter. Right? If you don't know the verb qatala, you don't know if the present tense is yaqtulu or yaqtalu or yaqtilu. You don't know if it's dhamma, fatha, or kasra on that middle letter unless you learn it. Right? So that's the first point. So when you're learning a past tense verb, you have to learn the present tense with it. Why? Because of this same reason. This is the only reason why you need to learn in tandem, right? And secondly, if you're looking at the dictionary, most prominent dictionaries, they would have the root verb, which meaning the past tense verb, that is daraba, and then after it, all right, they would have what is the present tense, right? They would put either fatha, dhamma, kasra, or if it's an Arabic English translation, you might see an I or U or A indicating what vowel has to go on that middle letter. So they actually have to tell you that in the dictionary, right? So if you open a dictionary, look for daraba, you would see an I after it, meaning what? The present tense is yadribu, a kasra below the ra. So that is what that little letter you see after the word in the dictionary. That is what it is for, to tell you what to use for the present tense. Right? And the other point I wanted to make here, right, before we move on, is you'll notice all of the present tense verbs, they end with dhamma on the last letter. They end with what? Dhamma on the last letter. right? And that is because they are in the what you call the nominative case. Just as you have nominative case with nouns, you have nominative case with verbs. However, the only verbs that are declinable that take different cases are what? Are the present tense verbs. So the past tense verbs are mabni, you don't change at all. You don't change with case, I mean. You change it when it's different, when you have different subjectively sentence and so on, right? Like darabu and so on. You take different pronouns at the end. But in terms of case, the past tense verbs, they don't change case. The command form verbs, they don't change case. They are mabni. However, the present tense form of the verbs, they can change case. They have three cases, all right? Nominative, accusative, and jussive. Okay? Yeah, there's no genitive with verbs. There's only genitive with nouns. All right. So the third one is jussive, where it takes a sukun on the last letter. Right? So you have dhamma, fatha, and sukun for verbs. The last letter of the verbs, those are declinable, meaning the present tense verbs. You can take dhamma, fatha, or sukun. No kasra. Verbs don't take kasra. All right. Dhamma, fatha, or sukun. These are the three cases, or the signs of the three cases, sorry, right, of the present tense verb. So you would see here, of course, the default being the nominative case. So therefore, you see it has the dhamma on the last letter of each of them. All right. Kataba yaktubu, jalasa yajlisu, dhahaba yadhabu, all right, and so on. So later on, when you see something acting upon these present tense verbs, there's a particle or whatever it is, you might see, instead of kataba yaktubu, you might say yaktuba. You might see a fatha on the ba. Or you might say yaktub with a sukun on the ba. All right, that means it's a different case because of some reason in the sentence, which we will get to later on. All right, so this is the next point I wanted to highlight here. So the 2 points again, you have to learn the vowel that goes on the middle letter in the present tense verb, and the present tense verbs are declinable, so they can take different cases. So they could be dhamma on the last letter, fatha on the last letter, or sukun on the last letter. Any questions? Only present tense verbs, right? Past tense and command form, they are indeclinable. They don't change case. They don't change the case, right? Any questions? Any other questions? So رقم 5, number 5. أكمل الجمل الآتية بوضع فعل مضارع مناسب في الفراغ. Right, so complete the following sentences by placing a suitable present tense verb in the blank spaces. All right, so let's look at the first one. We have blank أبي إلى السوق كل صباح. So something, my father goes to the souk goes, I cannot give away the verb there, right? But my father to the souk every morning. So the verb will be what? Yadhabu. Yadhabu. So dhahaba, yadhabu. Right? So dhahaba, yadhabu. Yadhabu abi ila suqi kulla sabahin. Sabah means what? Morning time. Right? In fact, some of the Arabs, like who try to be modern, or maybe those who are not Muslim, right, and try to be modern and Western, instead of saying Assalamu alaikum, which is prevalent throughout the Middle East, right? But if you try to be modern, try to be more Western, what do you say? Good morning. So good morning in Arabic is Sabah al Khayr. Khayr meaning good, and Sabah meaning morning. So sometimes you hear them say Sabah al Khair, which means good morning, right? But that is a rare thing. Mostly you hear the salams, right? So next one we have here. Mata something abuka min al masna'i. Mata something abuka min al masna'i. So the verbs you have learned was ذهب جلس نعم رجع يرجع نعم يرجع متى يرجع أبوك من المصنع? When does your father return from the factory? متى يرجع رجع را جيم عين رجع يرجي جيم كسرة يرجع عين with a dhamma above it because there's nothing to change it from nominative to accusative or jussive, right? So we will keep the dhamma above the I. Next one. Something Ahmadu al-qahwati al-qahwata was something Yusufu ashaya. So you have two things here. You have two names, Ahmad and Yusuf, and you have two drinks, al-qahwa, which is coffee, and ashaya, which is tea. So what do people do with coffee and tea? They drink it, or they make it, or they sell it, or they buy it, right? So the simplest is shariba yashrabu, right? So using the present tense verb, so you say yashrabu. If you look back at the table, you will see shariba under the table with the fatha above the middle letter. So you say yashrabu, yashrabu Ahmadu al-qahwata wa yashrabu Yusufu ash-shaya. So Ahmad drinks coffee and Yusuf drinks tea. Next one. Akhi something as-suhufa wa something al-akhbara min al-idha'ati kulla sabahin. So my brother something the was and something the news from the broadcast or from the station every morning. So we have that from the passage, right? The father.
Yes.
Yes, no. So first one is yaqra'u. Akhi yaqra'u. My brother reads as-suhufa, the papers. Wa yasma'u, na'am wa yasma'u, and listens to the news al-akhbara min al-idha'ati. Right, so he reads the papers and listens to the news. Right. All right, so we'll pause here. You all could try the other three, inshallah. These are pretty straightforward. All of the answers you notice in all of the exercises, answers for them are already in the passage or just after the passage, as you see here in the table. So you just have to look back and we get the appropriate word and use it in the exercises. So we can try to do this exercise, inshallah. Before we close off today, I just want to finish today, but we can't finish it. So let's look at number 6. All right, number 6 is teaching a new, well, not new, but rather is delving a little deeper into the numbers. Delving a little deeper into the numbers. All right. So inshallah, we would go through this and we will stop here today. Next week, inshallah, we will start back from here and then we will complete the exercises today. Next week, inshallah. All right. So here we have numbers from 21 to 30. 21 to 30. we would have done 1 to 10 in book 1. We would have done from 11 to 20 earlier on in this book. All right. And now we are doing from 21 to 30. Now in these numbers, we have numbers are joined by the wow. It's joined by the how do you call it? Get the word in English wrong. Conjunction. It's joined by the conjunction wow. All right, it's a conjunction. So joining two words. Whereas before, 1 to 10, we just had the number, which is one word, and then the thing which is counted, the ma'dud, which is another word. Then from 11 to 20, we had two words, but they were called murakkab, right? They were what you call a compound word, right? They had two words, but they make up one number, right? Like ثلاثة عشر, right? ثلاثة عشر, 3 and 10, which is 13, all right? Here, however, you have two numbers and they are joined by a conjunction, which is wow. So, you know, old time English, you used to say 4 and 20. Old time English, the older brothers and sisters might know that, right? The younger ones might know that.
20 blackbirds.
Yeah, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pipe. Right, so that's what we say in long time English, right? 4 and 20. But it's just like that, right? So we're saying 1 and 20, 2 and 20, 3 and 20, 4 and 20, 5 and 20, and so on. All right. So that's basically what we do. Yeah, you know about that? All right. Okay. So let's go through that here. So just say after me. واحد وعشرون طالبا.
واحد وعشرون طالب.
Right. Notice, remember I said, once we cross 10 from 11 onwards, the ma'dud, the thing which is counted, goes back to the singular. Singular. Even though we have plural, more than 3, it's more than 11, and so on, right? We use the singular form of the word. If you're translating it, however, you need to know that it has to be translated. If you're using English, then you would have to use the plural word, right? So this literally means 1 and 20 students, singular. But if you translate it, you would say what? 21 students, plural. Okay? So let's go at it again. واحد وعشرون طالبا.
واحد وعشرون طالب.
اثنان وعشرون طالبا. ثلاثة وعشرون طالبا.
ثلاثة وعشرون طالب.
24 طالبا.
24 طالب.
25 طالبا.
25 طالب.
26 طالبا.
26 طالب.
27 طالبا.
27 طالب.
28 طالبا.
28 طالب.
29 طالبا.
29 طالب.
30 طالبا.
30 طالب.
30 طالبا.
30 طالب.
So please practice this, inshallah. Next week we will start back from here and continue, inshallah. Any questions before we close off? Ma'dud is mansub. Ma'dud is singular and mansub. So the Taliban, it is mansub and it is, as I said before, is always singular. All right. And one other thing to note is that all of these, all right, they end with tanween. Sorry, not all of these, but the first letter, the first number ends with tanween, except for Ithnani, all right? Because ithnani is similar to the dual word where it ends with alif and noon with a kasra, right? Qalamani, rajulani, muhandisani, and so on, right? So ithnani doesn't have the tanween. It resembles, right, the dual word. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so we close off today. Jazakum Allah khair. And we meet next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك